All right, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to thank our chairman for creating, along with our manager, the space and bandwidth to do this. It is a luxury for us as commissioners that usually think and talk in 120-second increments to try to have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper. So I really appreciate their inspiration in allowing us to do this. And another thought I want to say, you know, we set policy, we chart a course, we begin on the implementation, and sometimes along the way we get data or input from the community which tells us we may need to reassess or pivot. And I just want you to know that my philosophy here is very open to that. We need to continue to use the hive mind and the information that we continue to get in terms of data and input to be sure at every stage we are doing the most good for the most people. Like Commissioner Leigh always says, the right people at the right time. And so I just want you to know I'm here for that. And another sort of philosophical point, I was talking to Commissioner Dunlap recently because I wake up every morning energized to do this work, but I also wake up every morning with the burden, not in a bad way, but in a serious way about what this means, this work. Because one thing I'm really focused on is the maps that we see no matter what the presentation is. It's always the same map. And I don't know how long I'll be on this board, and I don't know how long I'll be on this earth. But it's very important to me as a human being that loves my neighbor, that I use my time and whatever gifts and platform I've been given to actually help and make a difference for the good, for the greater good. But I'm also reminded of an ethical principle from my Jewish tradition that is from Pirkei Avot. It is not your responsibility to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. And so with that spirit of trying to do the most good but not be overwhelmed by the needs, I join hands with all of you here to continue to try to move us forward in the best way possible. And I appreciate the forbearance of my colleagues in having me talk about workforce development, because I know you've all heard it from me many a time. And so I will be brief because I'm really excited that our county manager, with the support of this board, has made a major move in his new leadership and in this budget cycle. He has created a new assistant deputy manager position, which is a big deal. That is a cabinet level position to help us focus on the ecosystem of connecting our residents to the jobs that are in demand and to aligning this whole community to the jobs of the future. That's not all it's going to do, but that's part of what it's going to do. And it is in part because of his commitment and his actual taking action that I do have less to say today, because I trust him and the work that he and Deputy Manager Dr. Johnson will be doing to identify that person with that skill set, to assess our ecosystem, to understand where the county sits in that ecosystem, and to come forward with recommendations that will allow us to do the most good as efficiently as possible. Because we do have so many demands on the limited taxpayer dollars that we have. And I also want to say that no conversation about the work we do, I think, can even be understood without always keeping in mind that we have roughly $500 million a year that we spend, that the General Assembly is actually responsible for having handled. Mecklenburg County government subsidizes over, please correct me the dollar figure, what is it exactly?
So $484 million is the amount that we identified as the county is funding because of a void of state funding to certain things.
Thank you, Adrian Cox. So that amount of money on an annual basis, we could be delivering to affordable housing. We could be delivering to Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And so I always want all of us and the community that's listening to understand what capacity we could have to make real progress if we had the full partnership that we are entitled to under state law from the people in the General Assembly. But with that being said, I want to just level set for those who have not heard me say it before, why I'm so focused on workforce development. As we know, employers lack reliable talent pipelines to meet economic goals. Americans remain disconnected in high-wage career paths, including very much so here in Mecklenburg County. The workforce system is fragmented, the workforce system lacks accountability, and AI is transforming work faster than the system can adapt. And this is not my opinion. This is from the United States Department of Labor, Commerce, and Education, but we also know that to be true locally. We all see it and feel it. And so I look forward to us addressing our workforce needs by coming up with an integrated workforce development system that maximizes efficiency, effectiveness. It provides accountability to workforce training programs, meaning we're not going to just pay for folks to train people. We are going to help support training programs that have a one-to-one correlation with connecting people to actual jobs that pay a good wage and have room for advancement, and to continue to develop alternatives to four-year college degrees. So CPCC and college and training programs, not one or the other, both and all of the above approach. This is my focus as we continue to go forward. And I want to just remind us also, we don't really have a playbook for this community. We have a shrinking population. We've heard that from our friends over at the Federal Reserve. We have an aging population who are going to need support. So we will have fewer people to meet those needs. And again, what the role of AI is going to have on all of these trends. So I look forward to us developing a playbook to orient Mecklenburg County for success in the coming decades. And lastly, I hope and trust, and the chairman, reminded us when he started this morning that this is our opportunity to say how we want to go deeper and what we as commissioners are really looking for. So what I as a commissioner am really looking for is a true partnership with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. It's already strong with CPCC, but I want it to go deeper with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools so that we are truly supporting our school system with coordination all the way down to elementary school. Because we are going to have, I-77 South, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's going to be, I think, a $3 billion project. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of opportunity for employment and upward economic mobility, if you're ready. If the transit plan passes, that's a $25 billion project over the next 30 years. Untold amount of impact, over 1 million jobs that will come to this community. But will our children be ready? Will we have children ready that has an equity lens? The people who have less participated in our wealth can actually access the opportunities that are probably coming here, that are certainly coming here. I don't know that we're there yet. And I don't expect CMS to figure it all out. They're trying to teach children to read and do math. That's our job, to be the connective tissue between the industries, the opportunities that we know are coming, the opportunities we continue to recruit through our great economic development team, and the school system. That's our job. And so I am just so grateful to our county manager and to this whole board, which has supported workforce development as a priority. I'm so excited by Commissioner Griffin's a talk that he's going to be bringing around workforce development and the wealth of experience around the dais and in the room to help us finally and truly put this community on boosters. Because, God willing, I hope that when I close my eyes, that I truly will have made an impact for all those maps because, like all of you here, I have a heart of service, and in my opinion, that's really the most important thing that I need to do while I'm here. Thank you, and I welcome any feedback from.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions or comments? We're going to start with Commissioner Townsend Ingram, then we'll go to Commissioner Leigh.
Thank you so much. I think everything that is going to be talked about today is part of my, oh, yeah, we need that. So thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair. You know, earlier in the week, or last week, we heard a question asked, or there was a question asked, rather, I'll say that, of what guarantees do we have that a certain organization would be able to fulfill the promises that they mentioned? And I have actually asked that of the Economic Development Board with regard to the corporations that come here. Now, I know that we are a deal and rule state, and there are some things that we just cannot do. There are things that are out of our control. But to the extent that we can, we have to be able to pivot and do things differently in this this environment that we have that is just politically charged and for so many other different reasons. Is there a way to incentivize, if we cannot require, but incentivize a percentage of jobs when we're giving away these tax breaks, incentivize those companies to hire a certain number of Mecklenburg County Mecklenburg County residents? For instance, you know, giving them a tax break if a certain percentage, if they, even any of the priorities that we have, linking those percentages. And I know we can't require them to hire, but, you know, there's no guarantee that all of the jobs that these big corporations are bringing will benefit the people that it's actually intended to benefit. When we say it'll bring this number of jobs, a lot of times they pipe in those people for those jobs. So what can we do? How can we do something different to incentivize these corporations?
So I will definitely defer to the county attorney on that. I certainly have pursued that question with him on numerous occasions. But one thing I will say is that in my travels across the county, when I go to neighborhood meetings, precinct meetings, and community meetings, I know, and I think it's probably a true statement, that most of the people that I encounter don't know about, for example, that in 3 years and 5 years and 7 years, there are these enormous job opportunities that are coming that they can compete for, and to think about how to get prepared and ready to do that. So I feel the capacity to deliver benefit to community is so much larger if we, the lawyer I think will tell you that we can't under the law. But if we as a county commission, and our role as a broker between our centers of learning and our private sector, more clearly deliver those opportunities and tell people, you have 3 years. This is the number of jobs. These are the skill sets. Here's where you need to show up to apply and to compete, and really help people know what those opportunities are, because they don't know.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And so that I think we can do. We can have such larger impact if we did that than trying to deal with the legal problem of requiring incentives, which, and I'll now defer to the lawyer. I just think we can have an enormous impact with the things we can control.
That was going to be my other question too. Actually, I probably should have just deferred to my first question, which was, do we have a designated person that works with the high schools of, each, to say, these are the top 3 demands for, of occupation, and how many students can we anticipate going into these roles? Do you tell them about them? I think that we put things in place, like I said, often, and they get broken. Systems get broken down, people leave, whatever, and then we don't fix them. We don't reevaluate them. We don't change to say, we're going to need this many trained in AI in the next 10 to 15 years or whatever.
Mr. Chair, it may be beneficial to have Roger come and
Right.
share with the board and the cabinet what we're currently doing in response to the feedback from Commissioner YTI.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Roger Johnson. I am the Economic Development Director for the county. To give some context to this particular topic, I joined the county about 2 years ago, and this same question was asked as my tenure began. And as much as the case being a Dillon Rule state and in other areas that I've worked, the general case law, and I'll defer to the county attorney, says you can incentivize on investment and jobs and really not much more. However, we heard the board's desire. So 2 years ago, including Commissioner Griffin, we added aspirational goals into our contract. And you may be speaking about 2.5 later today. I don't know if you are a commissioner, but you're subject to see the language where we do exactly what Commissioner Townsend Ingram is suggesting, where we ask those particular companies, again, this is the last 2 years, this is not 15 years historical, but in the last 2 years, we've asked those companies to report on what they are and are not doing as it relates to local hiring, environmental stewardship, and other philanthropic activities. We've only got one company in 1 year to date to provide that information to you, and we've given it to Commissioner Griffin. However, there is some reasons for that, and those reasons are when a company moves in here, they don't start building right away, and they don't start asking for incentives right away. It usually takes a 3 or 4 year window for that to occur. So we won't have a better understanding about where we stand in those aspirational goals until we have a few more years under our belt. Nevertheless, we have begun tracking that information because we have heard your board, and we're working toward it in the aspirational way that we can. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We're going to go to Commissioner Leigh.
Let me first say thank you for your presentation. As I sat here and listened, I was thinking about not just college training, but vocational training that we had within the confines of the school system. And politics played a role of removing them from out of the hands of the public education system to make sure that the community colleges had students coming in. So it shifted, and we have to be very careful in looking at those jobs and making sure that we don't shift them to other areas that will remove them from being able to participate in cosmetology, in bricklaying, in building, those kinds of vocational training, plumbing, that we need to bring back to the public school system where our children are. And I sat out there when these apartments were being built downtown. At 4 o'clock, I would go out there and park to see who was actually being employed. And it didn't look like me coming out of those buildings. They looked like you. And when I say that, black folk were not coming out of there being a part of the building of all those apartments right downtown in our front door. So we've got to do a better job of politically motivating us not to remove where the need is the greatest, and that's certainly in middle and high school training, to help them to make the decision what professions they will go in and to help the economic growth of our community. That's a must. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do I thank you or thank her?
Thank her.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Vice Chair, I'm sorry.
I had nothing to do with this one. It's on you, Commissioner.
All right, I want to thank.
Yes, you do. You're very supportive.
I want to thank both of you. Just a couple of comments, and this goes to the lawyer and the manager. I was surprised that the board did not get or receive the completed or consummated contracts from the business incentive programs. And so when I asked Dr. Johnson or Dina DiOrio to send me some copies, they in fact sent me some old copies. And I was astounded to learn that out of the 10 that was sent to me, only 2 had agreed to even attempt to work with workforce development. One was EY, and the other one was Allstate. Allstate didn't show up, I think, but EY did. There was a paragraph in Corning Optical's contract clause that basically gave them an option. You'd get a 25% increase bonus or whatever it was if you'd work with workforce development or the county's HR. It was a yes or no box, and they said no. So this is not a mandate requirement to get an incentive. This is just an offer to plus up the incentive, and I think that ought to, through negotiation with the city and the state, depending upon who the partners are, that clause ought to go back into the contract to give corporations an option. They can check the box, yes or no. That's one a policy piece. The second one is, and talking with Roger and the ED department, what I've learned is, I think finance, technology, business management, advanced manufacturing, health sciences. Those are the 5 areas that we've recruited for the last decade or so. Is that correct? He's saying yes. We ought to be able to fix a broken workforce development ecosystem to focus on training in those specific areas if those are the general thing. That's not the unique total, but we ought to be able to focus, I think, Madam Vice Chair, in the areas that we've been recruiting in for the last decade. So I think there's some fundamental policy things we can do in addition to the frontline stuff in terms of getting students ready for those type jobs. But I would hope that the board could start receiving the finished contracts from all of these business. They don't have to read them, but for those of us that do want to read them, it would be nice just to share those with the board. And final, the ecosystem, workforce development ecosystem, and I've talked to everybody, is broken. And just like housing, I'm not sure what the county can do in terms of mandated and non-mandated, but perhaps we might be able to be an impetus or a catalyst to get the ecosystem back together so that we can provide more support for local residents to get some of these jobs that are coming into the community. And I'll stop at that point, but the chair said in housing, I think he used leading on opportunity. They spoke specifically about preparation for college and career in 2013. This is 12 years later, and we don't have that ecosystem. So I think, government can only do but so much, but we ought to find a way to partner with the private sector a little bit better than where we are at this point. And I think we can, under your leadership, and as I understand it, your plans to have some personnel focus on it. Thank you, both Vice Chair and Chair.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and I know what a champion you are specifically for this, Commissioner Griffin. A couple thoughts. A lot of our priorities are very expensive. They have big dollar tags. I think workforce development potentially has a lot smaller. I'm looking for us to not, be CPCC. I don't need us to reproduce what Charlotte Works is doing. I'm looking for us to provide leadership, because I am not satisfied that the vision is connected and that we have someone in Mecklenburg County that has really identified with our lens where the gaps are. And so I want us to be the connective tissue and have the vision and the leadership. And also, you were talking about some of those trades, Commissioner Griffin, and I agree with you. I'm also interested in the new person we hire with the subject matter expertise to look at so-called mission-critical trades for the new, for our future. These are, it's a term of art in the industry, which they are trades which would prevent us from collapsing as a society if we sustained an attack, or we couldn't access our partners outside our borders who we rely upon for microchips or what have you. So for us to, Mecklenburg County doesn't have to wait for the federal government or the state government to be wise. We can be wise ahead of them. And we can understand what are the mission critical trades that we need to support life and functionality and be sure that we are organically growing those here. So that's just another thought. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but that's just another piece of it that I look forward to our subject matter expert researching.
So Commissioner Altman, I want to say thank you for sharing your thoughts on this presentation. A couple of things. You started with the maps. And so any area that we look at, we're always looking at these maps that show, obviously, the disparities as it relates to the crescent. And whether we're talking about affordable housing or workforce, that certainly applies. And I think it gives us, the maps actually, no pun intended, give us a roadmap, Mr. Manager, on what the focus of the county should and could be. And where I would think in all of our passion areas, we can't be all things to all people, but we can tip the scales where there is inequity. And we're seeing these disproportionate outcomes related to the maps that you suggested. I support this priority 1,000%. I'm a product. I sit here today because of a workforce development program that my mother had when I was almost a baby, but certainly it certainly changed our quality of life, because where we lived at that time, you would see that map would have certainly covered where we were, and where we were able to get to was a different part of that map. So that is one of the reasons why I support it 1,000%. And I would like to see us use every tool in our tool belt to be able to do some of the things that's been said. Commissioner Townsend Ingram, I agree with you 1,000% on how we can get our private sector employers that do receive incentives to connect up in a deeper way. I would agree with that. So with that being said, thank you for
Mr.
the
Chair,
presentation.
can I make
Yes.
a brief comment?
Yes.
Well, number one, thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for your presentation. I appreciate and respect your passion for this subject matter. I think we're batting 2 for 2 today regarding the presentation. It's well done. One of the things I want to make sure that the board has an awareness as we talk about the county's strategy, and we bring that forward to you all, that an element of that strategy will focus on the shrinking middle.
Yes.
And that's really important to me, because
Yes.
I was in Boston last month, attended a trip with the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, and we received a presentation on this very topic. And one of the things that the expert presented was that, as it relates to return on investment, that the higher yield tends to be when you're focusing on that shrinking middle. Because, that group of the population find themselves maybe a paycheck away from a car repair or something else and needing some level of financial assistance. So as we think about our strategy and what that looks like here in Mecklenburg County, I can assure you that an element of that will be focused on that missing middle, that shrinking middle as well, for the reasons that I described. We're certainly going to continue to serve the other families. But in terms of you just thinking about it from a cost perspective and that yield on return and trying to move the dial relative to upper mobility, it's really important that it's inclusive of a strategy that looks at the shrinking middle as well. Regarding an update on the position, I am eager to fill it as well. Although the position remains open, screening has started, and there's no shortage of interest both locally and nationally. And if things continue on track the way they are, it is my hope, with respect to the holidays coming up, that by the end of the calendar year or early part of the new year, that we will have that new talent on board. I'll continue to keep you abreast of that.
I just want to say I really appreciate both aspects of your comments greatly. Thank you.
Thank you.